I'm not gonna lie. I could see a world though where the NFC South is competent next year, but we'll see how that goes. Like where there could at least be two teams in the playoffs. Like that's how. I don't know. I think Tampa Bay though. I think they're gonna have probably like the biggest fall off in the division. I think they got to enter a rebuild. I mean, Mike Evans already said he's probably not coming back, which makes me smile from year to year. So.
Are you? What you said? Who's not coming back?
Mike Evans.
He's not coming back to Tampa Bay.
He said that he's open and testing the market.
But it doesn't mean he's not coming back.
Well, damn it, I'm gonna choose to believe it.
Okay. I'm about to say that'd be much bigger news if he was like saying he's definitely not coming back. Okay. All right. You ready to go?
Yeah. You got my stream key in the thing, right?
Yeah, I got your stream key in there.
I bet.
All right, we are live, at least on my channel. I don't know if we're live on Mikey's channel yet or not. But anyway, who day?
Who that?
Not really. Not really. I mean, you know, plenty of games, just not the one where they play the Bengals.
Who? What? When? Where? And why?
The Saints. Who dat? It's fine, just not when you play the Bengals.
We'll see next year.
That's what I'm saying. It's not going to happen.
And by the way, no, I'm not live.
Not live? Well, no. I got you. It says streaming.
Okay, it's probably. I'll fix it later. It's fine.
All right. Well, anyway, yeah. So obviously there's been a lot of head coaching hires. There have been a couple that haven't happened yet. Still waiting to hear what's going to go on with the Cardinals and the Raiders. Who's going to succeed the dinosaur that was Pete Carroll, and who's going to succeed the nut job that was Jonathan Gannon, who's now the Packers defensive coordinator, which is that's something. But definitely not the Cardinals head coach anymore. And I gotta say, like Jonathan Gannon as a head coach was basically like Nick Sirianni, but bad. And you could also make, you know, some have made the argument that Nick Sirianni's bad, but Nick Sirianni also won a Super Bowl. So, like,
I mean, I thought Jonathan Gannon, when he first got there to Arizona, I felt like, you know, he was a pretty solid coach. But then he punched a player last year. The team started losing, and I'm like, okay, well, there goes Jonathan Gannon.
Yeah, so he's like if Nick Sirianni's personality like took over the body of Urban Meyer.
Yeah,
and then was a bit of a better head coach than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who do you think? There's only two positions left. Who do you think is gonna get those jobs?
Yeah, I did a lot of scouting before this. I think the Raiders are gonna hire Clint Kubiak because
that's a lot of the buzz I've been hearing. Yeah.
Because I think he's going to want to go to the Raiders more than the Cardinals. Because I think, you know,
I don't know why anybody would want to go to the Cardinals or to go to the Raiders.
Well, it's because the Raiders, I think, are a better situation than Arizona right now because they have the number one overall pick. But like with the Cardinals, you don't know. Like, I mean, yeah, you can pick your quarterback, but I mean, who's going to want to trade for Kyler's contract? To be honest with you, so I think he would want to go to the Raiders more than Arizona.
Yeah, but I mean, here's the thing. I actually think that the Cardinals are a bit of a more attractive option than the Raiders because, like, the Raiders are just complete chaos. Like, I don't even know what the hell's going on with the Raiders half the time.
You could say the same thing with Arizona.
You could, but I don't know. It's just like with Arizona, it feels like a little bit more of a blank slate. With the Raiders, I mean, you got like, you know, there's a decent chance they're going to get Mendoza. But, like, is Mendoza even going to develop properly in Las Vegas?
Yes.
You say that, but look at Sam Darnold.
Exactly. Look at Sam Darnold.
Sam Darnold turned out pretty good, but he didn't develop at all in New York.
That's because the Jets are the Jets.
That's what the Raiders are the Raiders.
The Raiders have developed some guys in the past.
Not recently. When's the last time they developed a quarterback?
Derek Carr.
Derek Carr is about the only one. And even then, like, Okay, for a second round pick, Derek Carr was pretty solid, but I wouldn't say anybody's going to point to Derek Carr and be like, "Oh, that's proof that the Raiders are a great franchise."
I mean, Derek Carr was on track to win MVP one year, then he got hurt, and then
Yeah, and then it completely fell off the rails because the Raiders make no sense because the Raiders mismanage everything. That's, if anything, that's actually, I think, a point away from wanting to go to the Raiders because, like, you got one guy who turned out pretty decent for a little bit and then completely fell off. And part of the reason he fell off is because there was so much chaos around him constantly. Like, I mean, just look at the whole John Gruden situation as I think a microcosm of how much of a mess the Raiders are. Like, I mean, the Cardinals, don't get me wrong, the Cardinals obviously, like, aren't a good organization. They're consistently like just trying to climb out of the basement in the NFC West.
And that's another part why I would not go to Arizona, because you got to deal with three monsters in your division. But in the AFC West, you don't know if you're going to have to play against Mahomes next year with his torn ACL. And the Broncos, they won 14 games, but you can beat the Broncos. And the Chargers, who knows the damn Chargers? So I feel like the Raiders, like, you could probably contend quicker with the Raiders than you can with Arizona.
I would, let's just say I would be shocked. Like utterly shocked if Mahomes doesn't play next year. I know the ACL thing, but people rehab from ACLs a lot faster these days than they used to. And the way that Mahomes is with injuries, I don't see him missing next year. That just doesn't seem like the Patrick Mahomes that I know. Like I don't see him missing next year. I don't think that's realistic. And then obviously the Broncos are doing really well right now. I mean, like the Broncos are like, they're who did they beat to get to the AFC Championship again?
The Bills.
Yeah, it's on the tip of my tongue. But the way they got to the AFC Championship, notwithstanding, I at no point have the Broncos really convinced me all year. The divisional round was pretty good. I'll give them that, but I haven't really been so insanely convinced that the Broncos are actually as good as their record indicated this year. But they're still a really good football team, and they're very well coached. So the Broncos is a bit of an interesting situation. But first of all, I don't think that you're picking like, well, you want to go to the Cardinals and like you go to the Cardinals, you're going to have to deal with the Rams, you're going to have to deal with the Seahawks, you're going to have to deal with the 49ers. I get that. Although you want to talk about injuries, maybe the 49ers aren't really anything to worry about if you can get good enough. And really the whole point of this is getting good, right? It's not about just, being it's not just about like strategizing where you go to win based off of your strategy. Like you still got to get there and you got to like be a good coach for any of it to matter. And so, like, I mean, you can overcome the 49ers. The Seahawks, I mean, like, they just got good this year, but who knows how long that's going to last. And then the Rams, really kind of feels like the Rams are living on borrowed time at this point.
I mean, I understand that, but yeah, I just think if I was a coach on the market, I would look at the most desirable. And like the Cardinals, they got too many questions to figure out. Like, and the Raiders, yeah,
the Raiders not? They got the number 1 overall pick for a reason.
I was about to get to that point. Yeah, the Raiders have questions too, but the number 1 overall pick is the number 1 overall pick. And like, if you can have a good offseason, the Raiders are going to be way better next season than 3 wins. And I understand that's not a tall bar to climb, but it's like, I mean, look at the Raiders from even a year ago. A year ago, the Raiders, like they won 6 or 7 games, something like that, and now they're winning 3 games with Pete Carroll. I mean, he's grandpa at this point.
So the Cardinals have the number 3 overall pick. I know it's not the number 1, but I mean, it's still a pretty solid pick. And it's like, Mendoza this, Mendoza that, but Mendoza might not be anything. Look at how everybody thought Trevor Lawrence was going to be like the next Peyton Manning, and he's turned out okay. This year was pretty solid. But I wouldn't say most people would argue that Trevor Lawrence has lived up to his hype. Joe Burrow is another guy who was heavily touted, at least after his senior season coming out of college, just because of like, I mean, like, I would argue Joe Burrow's turned into one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but due to the organization around him, it hasn't really, necessarily mattered a whole hell of a lot. We had a decent run in 21 and 22, and outside of that, what good's Joe Burrow really done us? And I'm not saying we should get rid of Joe Burrow. I'm just saying from the perspective of choosing your next destination, I wouldn't say that the number one overall pick trumps all other things. And the Raiders are such a mess. I just don't know if I'd really want to go there.
I think there's more.
I'd rather go there than the Browns.
I think there's more talent on the Raiders than there is Arizona. Because look at the Raiders. Ashton Jeanty, if you can develop him, you got yourself one. Brock Bowers, he's one of the best tight ends. Max Crosby, one of the best defensive linemen. Michael Mayer, pretty good backup tight end. The Raiders' offensive line ain't good, but if you can draft well, then you can build that offensive line. And Trey Tucker, he had a solid year at wide receiver for the Raiders. So I think the Raiders have a lot of pieces more than Arizona. Yeah, Arizona has Marvin Harrison Jr. What has he done? Kyler Murray's on the way out the door. James Conner, he's getting up there in age when it comes to running backs. Trey McBride, okay, I'll give you all McBride, but what else? Budda Baker, he's not going to be there for much longer. He might have a few good years in him left. But he's a freaking safety, and he's, I think, already past the age of 30. And if he's not past the age of 30, he's almost 30. So, and then, I don't even know the Cardinals linebackers. So, it's I think the Cardinals have too many holes at the Raiders, I think. And I understand they were the worst team by draft-wise. But I think the Las Vegas Raiders, if I was a coach, I would look at the Raiders and I'd be like, I think we can do something here more than I would about Arizona.
I don't know. If I'm a coach, I feel like I'm looking at Arizona as a blank canvas. Whereas the Raiders, there's just so much bloat to cut out. Outside of obviously the quarterback situation's wide open. But beyond that, look at Max Crosby as just an example of everything else that's going on with that organization. I just feel like there's too many weeds that you gotta whack. With the Raiders, whereas the Cardinals, I feel like the Cardinals are a bit of a blank slate. Get Kyler Murray out of there, and you can probably, I don't know what you can trade him for, but you can get, I don't know what you can trade him for, but you probably get something. And you might have to eat some of that contract, but if anything, that gives you I would think that gives you a bit of a buffer as a head coach, because if you can get in there and you can show that. You can get something out of this roster, even though it's probably year one, not going to be anything to really speak about. But if you can get in there and you can show that, hey, this team can perform and do some stuff with you in there, then you're going to have a really good situation here in a couple years. Whereas with the Raiders, I don't see any indication that they're going to do anything that's going to support you at all.
And I understand. Look, I'm not arguing that the Raiders are a great team. Obviously, whoever is saying that is a stupid person. But I will say this: the Las Vegas Raiders. Look, we've seen plenty of times where teams go from the number one overall pick to the playoffs in a couple years. The Jaguars, for example, your Cincinnati Bengals, for example, the Saints back in 2006 had the first overall. Had the first overall pick, and then they're in the NFC Championship game the year after. We've seen coaches go to an organization and churn a team around in very little time. 49ers in 2018 finished with the second overall pick. 2019, they're in the damn Super Bowl. So, we've seen worse to first. And I think the Raiders are closer than Arizona is personally, because Raiders, you know who your quarterbacks are going to be. You know you're drafting Mendoza. And if you say you're not drafting Mendoza, you're a damn lie. Arizona, everything, there's 7 different options. And Kyler Murray's probably not even one of the 7. So it's there's just a lot of stuff Arizona has to figure out right now. And that's why I think the Raiders, in my eyes, would be a better situation, especially for Clint Kubiak, who was an offensive mind, and you want to work with Mendoza and Jeanty and Bowers and guys like that. And the Cardinals, you have Marvin Harrison. Congratulations. But on Arizona's side, I think they're going to hire the Panthers defensive coordinator. I forgot his name, but Evero, something like that.
Ejiro Evero?
Yeah, him.
Yeah. Why him? I haven't heard him talked about hardly at all.
Well, because I just know the Cardinals, they value like defensive guys, and I think if they're not going to get Clint, who is an offensive guy, but I think Evero. I mean, I've heard a couple rumblings lately about him, but I think he just fits Arizona's type personally. So yeah.
Yeah. Maybe. What about seems like a bit of a dark horse almost, because like I've heard almost nothing said about him. Oh wait, never mind. He didn't get fired. Never mind. What about? Okay. Yeah, I thought so. Okay. What about Steve Spagnuolo?
Steve, he's the Chiefs guy, right?
Well, yeah, he's the Chiefs defensive coordinator. I've always really liked him, and I obviously haven't in recent years, but prior to him, or prior to like probably 2021, I've been a big fan of Steve Spagnuolo. I've always really liked him as a DC, and I thought that he was so I thought he kind of got a raw deal with the Rams back in what was it, like 15 years ago when he was a head coach. He was with the St. Louis Rams for a little while, and I thought that he was going to be a pretty solid head coach. He never really got, I think, even a halfway decent shot. But he helped build that Giants defense that upset the 2007 Patriots. And he's pretty much been a solid defensive coordinator anywhere else he's gone. Wasn't he also a defensive coordinator for a minute? I think for like 1 year or something like that.
For who?
Steve Spagnuolo.
Yeah, I remember he was. I think you worked for the Saints 1 year. I think.
Yeah. You don't remember how that year went?
Hold on, I could probably find out. I don't know. I wasn't watching when Steve Spagnuolo was because I think it was Steve, and then I think it was Dennis Allen, and I started watching when Dennis Allen took over.
Apparently, that was the year that Sean Payton was suspended because of Bountygate.
So yeah, that year was. What year was that? Was that 2011?
12, I think.
12. How did that 20? I mean, I think
the Saints allowed the most yards for a season for any defense in NFL history, en route to 7-9.
Well,
okay, so obviously things didn't go so well for him in New Orleans.
Of course, because why would they ever go well in New Orleans?
But in general, I've always thought of him as a really solid defensive mind in the NFL, and I've always thought he deserved another shot at being a head coach. The Rams were kind of a mess at that time, and it wasn't really a very good opportunity. So yeah. I felt like that was kind of he got a raw deal in St. Louis, and I've heard a few rumblings about him potentially being a head coaching candidate again. So I just wonder if I will say if he was going to be an option for Arizona, you'd think he'd already would have been hired.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, I wouldn't hate the hire for Spagnuolo to Arizona. Like that's a move where it's like honestly that's probably Arizona's type, but I don't know. I think he could be a good coach. I just don't really know if like his time is. Because we've seen plenty of times where guys wait for better opportunities. So I don't know. I feel like if Steve Spagnuolo wanted to be a head coach like so bad, I think he probably would have already taken the job if somebody even wants him. So,
you know what? You know who I've heard a lot of rumblings about, who I could see being connected to the Cardinals in a manner of speaking. A guy who's gotten at least some talk, at least about like where he's going next, and then maybe a little bit of head coaching talk, not a whole lot. Cliff Kingsbury.
Him, I don't like him as a head coach personally. I just think, I think he had talent in Arizona that he just used, and he just.
Obviously, I was joking because he was already fired by the Cardinals at one time.
Oh yeah, you right.
Okay. No, I don't like Cliff. I've never liked Cliff Kingsbury. If I connect Cliff Kingsbury to a head coaching opportunity, that's largely because that's what I'm hearing. It's not because I endorse it at all.
No, I could see a world where Cliff becomes like a good head coach because he's like young and offensive minded. But I mean, I thought even when he went to Arizona, I thought he was going to be good there, but he just flamed out. Like
I've never once ever since I heard his name connected to NFL circles, I've never liked Cliff Kingsbury as a coach. I don't think he's got the right mentality. I think his strategies are it's all, he's got a very all eggs in one basket type of offensive strategy, and his ideas don't really make a lot of sense at the NFL level to me. And when has he ever had success at the NFL level other than like a very short, like kind of good run with the Cardinals, but even then they fell short of like the dark horse expectations that they had.
Well, very nice of you.
I don't like Cliff Kingsbury. I never have.
That's not very nice of you.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sure he's a perfectly. I mean, he does. Like honestly, if you look, like he looks like a douchebag. But I don't know. I don't know the man. He could be a very nice person. I don't know. I'm not trying to speak ill about his character or anything like that. I don't like him as a head coach. I never have. I don't like him in the NFL at all. I barely like him as a college coach, but his ideas work in college. Like you can't argue that.
I don't know. I think Cliff.
Raheem Morris.
Move on. You know who he should get hired by? Atlanta.
Who?
Raheem Morris. He should go to Atlanta. He's a perfect head coach candidate for now.
That would be wild. What about Chris Shula?
Now him, I think.
You think the Cardinals might be interested in him?
I mean, he's definitely like one of the hottest names right now. I don't know how I feel about Chris Shula. Look, I'm not really a big fan of defensive coordinators becoming head coaches. I don't care. Maybe that's just the Dennis Allen trauma in me, but I've just never been a big fan of that.
We're talking about defensive guys who maybe fit the Cardinals. Like we're not talking about endorsing right now.
I know. I think Chris Shula, he's definitely like probably if I had to like put him like on the scale, like if I was a Cardinals fan, I would say I would probably be interested like in like a 6 out of 10. Like it wouldn't be a bad move necessarily. I just don't know how I feel about him going to Arizona, but I mean, like I said, Arizona, they go after defensive guys. I mean, when's the last time they went heavy offensive mind? I mean, so yeah, I think old dude, like he might have a shot.
My biggest problem with Chris Shula is I'm not saying Chris Shula won't be a good head coach in the NFL one day. I don't know anything about the guy. I know the Rams defense looks pretty good to me. I don't know how much of that is Chris Shula and how much of that is, talent or, I mean, I don't know. I'm not super well versed in Chris Shula. All I know is if there's one thing that pisses me off in the NFL, it's nepotism. And if there's another thing that pisses me off in the NFL, it's the fact that nepotism is so incredibly rampant, and most of the time it's not even it's so obvious that it's nepotism, and it's not about merit or anything like that. Like a lot of these guys get these jobs because of their connections or their name. And I don't know anything about Chris Shula, but I do know a lot about his dad. I know a stupid amount about his dad, and I hate his dad. not as a person, as a coach. And the only reason he became our head coach in the early 90s is because his dad was Don Shula. And it was one of the biggest flameouts of any head coach. In probably the biggest flameout in our franchise history. And when we hired him, the only thing anybody ever talked about with the Bengals was, where are they going to play the Dolphins? There's going to be, Shula versus Shula action. And so, like, I don't know, like, that's his dad. Dave Shula is Chris Shula's dad. And maybe Chris Shula is more like his grandfather than his dad. I don't know. But all I know is I'm really skeptical anytime, like my default nature when I hear about somebody who's got like a famous name is skepticism. How often is that really, like, how often is, like, the child or the grandchild or whatever of a famous person actually like carry on the family name and do just as well at the thing? Like in the NFL, it very rarely happens. Like, I mean, like a lot of guys in the NFL, a lot of players are people whose like whole family has been involved in the NFL. But like typically, like Orlando Brown Jr. is a good example. His dad was a very good player, but Orlando Brown Sr. wasn't exactly like, the most well-known player of all time.
I mean, I don't know if you know or not, but a part of why Pete Carroll was fired was because of nepotism. So
that sounds, I believe that, and if anything, just the fact that the Raiders were letting them do that. But then again, it's not just
the line coach. Was the Raiders' offensive line coach was Pete Carroll's son, and their offensive line was horrible. He refused to do a damn thing about it. So they're like, okay, yeah, it's definitely
Bill Belichick and Steven Belichick.
Yeah, him. Like, bro, like, what does Steven Belichick even do other than have weird facial expressions?
He's Bill Belichick's son, and Bill Belichick has frankly earned the right to, hire his son. But the problem is, if you notice, Steven Belichick doesn't seem to be getting any buzz at all with any jobs other than wherever his dad is. Like, he got the jobs with the Patriots, and then he, went to UNC. I don't even know what he's doing right now. I'm guessing he's still with UNC.
Speaking of that, how do you feel about Bill Belichick not being first ballot?
So let's see. How do I feel about Bill Belichick not being first ballot?
I think it's ridiculous, personally.
I think it's
I think it's ridiculous, personally.
Oh yeah, okay. So I mean, just on the surface, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's stupid. It's insane. I think that's generally the opinion of most football fans, by the way. Like, I haven't really heard anybody defending it too much. My only push against like the general narrative that's kind of out there is I'm just not that surprised. Like, like the we're talking about nepotism with the with like, the head coaching hires and everything like that, like, Pete Carroll and potentially Chris Shula and definitely Steven Belichick and everything like that. We talk about nepotism this, nepotism that, but like that's just what the like half of what the NFL is just built off of people just knowing other people and being like, I like this guy. And that being kind of the whole thing. And the thing about Bill Belichick is nobody fucking likes the guy. Yeah, and that's unfortunately, like, why do you think Joe Namath's in the Hall of Fame? Because he was funny.
Yeah.
Why do you think Terry Bradshaw's in the Hall of Fame?
Every time someone argues with me about Hall of Fame, I'm like, bro, Joe Namath is in the gosh darn Hall of Fame. Like, you can't no.
I do think that the NFL Hall of Fame, like if you're an NFL Hall of Famer, it's a pretty good indication that you were probably a great player in some way. My argument with Joe Namath has always been, as I've said on the show before, My argument with Joe Namath has always been like maybe Joe Namath wasn't like, the greatest quarterback of all time, but his guarantee to win the Super Bowl that put the AFL on the map is such an like a indispensable part of NFL history that like you can't talk about the story of the NFL without that happening, right? So like if that moment doesn't happen, then nothing in the NFL today looks the way it does. And so while I'll agree with you, Joe Namath himself, just if you just look at his stats and you look at his success and et cetera, he's not really a very good example of like, if you play like that, you'll be a Hall of Famer. The only thing with him is like I've always used Terry Bradshaw as one of my biggest examples of like, what's that guy doing in the Hall of Fame? Like he won 4 Super Bowls, great, because the Steelers had like a all-time defense, and were roided up and everything like that. Terry Bradshaw himself was not, a remarkably good quarterback. Joe Namath was on same deal with Terry Bradshaw. Difference is Terry Bradshaw didn't make history at any point. Like his team made history by being the first great Super Bowl dynasty. But he didn't. He himself did not leave a mark on the NFL the way that Joe Namath did by bringing the AFL to relevance.
Yeah.
But so anyway, we're getting off track. We're not talking about the Hall of Fame right now. We can talk about Bill Belichick a little bit though. And my whole thing with that is like all I have to say about that is I'm not surprised. Like, do I think it's dumb? Yeah. Am I getting really big up in arms about it? No, because like that's pretty much what I expect. They're gonna put who they want in there, and they're gonna do the things that they want to do. Why? There's no reason on earth why Ken Anderson shouldn't have already been in the Hall of Fame years ago. There's no way Ken Riley had to wait until after he died to make the Hall of Fame. It's just basically who these people give a shit about in the moment. It's not as dumb as the Pro Bowl. I heard them talking about that on GPS. The NFL Hall of Fame is just the Pro Bowl now. It's not as dumb as the Pro Bowl because the Pro Bowl is voted on by fans, which are even more fickle, and make even less sense. But at the same time, like, okay, so think about this in the reverse. Like, all of the bias that Shedeur Sanders has against him among NFL owners, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they seem to just hate the guy for whatever reason. I don't know, maybe he sucks, but Shedeur Sanders, definitely has had a ton of bias against him at least as far as the NFL owners go. So Shedeur Sanders, if he turns out to be like one of the greatest, quarterbacks ever or whatever, he still might have a hard time getting to the Hall of Fame just because he pissed off the wrong guy.
Yeah,
and that's what sucks about it. But I'm also not surprised.
Yeah, I mean, friggin' Joe Flacco even made the Pro Bowl.
I know. I just saw that before this. That's like, okay. Don't get me wrong. I'm not.
Backup.
Well, sort of. He was.
He was actually because Burrow was hurt. But other than that, he was a damn backup.
Well, he was a starter for Cleveland too.
Yeah, then he sucked his way out of Cleveland.
No, the Browns sucked around Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco, like as I said, going into Joe Flacco being our when we traded for him. Like, if you actually watch those games, Joe Flacco's pretty much playing fine. Like, all those interceptions, hardly any of them were his fault. Is the Browns dropping balls?
Principle. Do you know the guys that were better than Joe Flacco for like Lamar Jackson
absolutely.
got in the Pro Bowl, Trevor Lawrence got in the Pro Bowl? Goddamn, like I would even take Aaron Rodgers in the Pro Bowl before I take Joe Flacco.
You shut your fucking mouth. But listen.
No.
Listen. Joe Flacco being in the Pro Bowl is funny. Okay.
So Shedeur, I guess, if we're playing that.
I actually do agree with that. Shedeur being in the Pro Bowl is actually quite funny. But like a lot of people are getting upset about it because they're trying to be like, oh, Shador's bad, and then like other people are trying to be like, well, you're racist if you think Shador's bad, and then other people are like, well, you're reverse racist if you think that I'm racist, and it just devolves into bullshit at that point, and I hate all of it. But what I can tell you is Shedeur Sanders being the Pro Bowl is very funny, and the Pro Bowl's a joke anyway. So why the fuck does anybody care? I think Joe Flacco being in the Pro Bowl is hilarious.
It's about principle. Like, how are you going to throw three?
The Pro Bowl has no principle. The Pro Bowl's a joke. That was my whole point.
I see that now.
You should have seen that before. Now, the NFL Hall of Fame should have principle. That is frustrating. I'm just here to tell you that, if you're trying to hold these, NFL, these billionaire owners to any sort of principle, I would pick a different career path. Look, it's just not going to happen. They're garbage. They have a garbage mentality. They think they're above everything. I wouldn't try to hold them to a standard. You'll have an aneurysm. Just don't do it.
But it's like a big way to make the Hall of Fame, according to some voters, is the amount of Pro Bowl selections. And you know how much people might not make first ballot Hall of Fame because Shedeur Sanders and Joe Flacco took a spot from them?
I don't think that I think you're reaching a little bit on that one.
No, I'm not.
I mean, I'm not saying that couldn't factor into a decision at some point, but who else? Aaron Rodgers isn't going to lose out on the Hall of Fame because he didn't make the Pro Bowl in his final season, possibly final season in the NFL. Who else are we concerned about? Not
Lamar, Trevor Lawrence.
Lamar is not going to miss the Hall of Fame because he didn't make a Pro Bowl in the year he got injured.
He might. You never know.
He's not going to. You said Phillip Rivers? First of all, Phillip Rivers is garbage.
Okay, he was not garbage, dude.
Well, that first game back, he looked pretty good. Other than that, he wasn't very good.
Yeah, no. He was doing good this season.
Okay, let's qualify this then. For 9,000-year-old hermit with blisters and boils all over his body and gray hair, he played pretty well for that, right? But by Pro Bowl standards, he didn't play that well.
I'm not saying he should be in the damn Pro Bowl, but knowing fans, they probably wanted him. I'm surprised Phillip Rivers stayed in the Pro Bowl.
You brought that up as saying Phillip Rivers might miss the Hall of Fame because he didn't get the Pro Bowl this year. First of all, Phillip Rivers might miss the Hall of Fame because Phillip Rivers, frankly, might not be a Hall of Fame quarterback.
I never said Phillip Rivers' name, but okay.
Oh, you did? I thought you did.
No, that was you.
I thought you said Phillip Rivers. I'm sorry. Who'd you say?
I said Lamar, and I said Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor.
What?
Okay, so let me be absolutely clear. Trevor Lawrence 1,000,000,000% deserved to make the Pro Bowl over Joe Flacco. I'm not saying that.
Dude,
I would calm down a little bit with the Hall of Fame talk though with Trevor Lawrence because this is the first year that he's looked like he's even worth the number 1 overall pick. Okay, so calm down a little bit.
I'm just saying, if he turns his career around and ends up winning 7 damn Super Bowls, and
then he's not going to miss the Hall of Fame because he missed the Pro Bowl 1 year.
Oh no!
If he wins 7 Super Bowls, he's going to make the Hall of Fame. They might change the rules to let him in it, before he retires.
Okay.
I'm a little surprised they didn't try to do that with Tom Brady.
Same. And by the way, speaking of that, if Bill Belichick didn't make first ballot Hall of Fame, man, I know this might sound crazy. If Belichick didn't make it, Tom Brady shouldn't make it either.
I disagree with that.
Now, I think Brady should be a first ballot. But if you don't let Bill Belichick in because of Spygate and Deflategate, you should not let Tom Brady in the first ballot Hall of Fame either. And that's not me hating on Brady. That's just me saying if Bill Belichick doesn't make it, Brady shouldn't make it either then.
Well, I'm gonna disagree with that because Tom Brady I'm not going to sit here and say that the principle of what you're saying is necessarily wrong. What I am going to say is I think Tom Brady, out of the two, I think it's pretty clear at this point that Tom Brady was the bigger reason for the Patriots' success, right? Bill Belichick, great coach. Tom Brady doesn't happen the way that he happened without Bill Belichick being there first. But Tom Brady massively exceeded Bill Belichick's impact after Bill Belichick brought him up. And Bill Belichick deserved to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think it's stupid that he didn't get it. But Tom Brady was more impactful than Bill Belichick. And so Tom Brady absolutely.
I'm not arguing that part. But if you heard most of the voters talk, the reason that they didn't let Belichick in was because of Spygate and Deflategate. Well, if that's the reason Belichick doesn't get in, then why should Brady get in then?
If I had to bet, I think Spygate was probably more of a thing than Deflategate. Because, well, it was Bill Polian, right? Bill Polian, who was kind of leading the charge on that. And Bill Polian was a much bigger player around the time of Spygate than he was Deflategate. So if I had to bet, like Deflategate's probably like thrown in there to be like, look at all the times he cheated. But like the one that's really kind of stuck in their craw, if I had to bet, is Spygate. And I'm not saying Tom Brady didn't like okay Spygate. I'm saying Deflategate was more of the Tom Brady side of things. Spygate was more of the, like orchestrated by Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I swear, next week, if they say Drew Brees does not make Hall of Fame because of goddamn Bountygate, I'm a punch a wall.
Drew Brees didn't even do Bountygate.
Exactly.
That wasn't even. It's kind of my argument with like Tom Brady. Tom Brady wasn't like didn't order the cameras to be spying on other team signals. Drew Brees, like definitely I think knew about Bountygate and probably didn't do anything about it. You could probably make the same argument with Tom Brady and Spygate. Like they both benefited from that kind of bad stuff, but blaming Tom Brady for Spygate makes about as much sense I think as blaming Drew Brees for Bountygate.
I know, but like my argument is, if Bill Belichick is in the first ballot Hall of Famer, even though he has 8 damn rings because of Spygate and Bountygate, then why should you even consider Tom Brady for first ballot Hall of Famer? And look, I think if you don't think Brady's a first ballot Hall of Famer, you're clinically insane. But if I also would have said the same thing about Bill Belichick, and you freaking are. 8 rings, second all-time in career wins, that means nothing because of goddamn Spygate and Deflategate.
Yeah, I agree. I think I heard it said, might have also been on GPS, I don't remember, but like before Spygate even happened, Bill Belichick was already a Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget, that first 3 Super Bowl wins, there was no cheating controversy around those. And then this is also the man that coached Lawrence Taylor and won a ring with the Giants, right? So, obviously there was a bit of a dark stain because of his time in Cleveland. But frankly, nobody was going to do well with that team in Cleveland. Like, it just wasn't going to happen. But, yeah. I completely – I agree, Bill. But let's get back to the head coaches. So, I don't even know how long we've been going here. But let's see. Here we go. An hour. Oh, okay, 45 minutes. Okay, so we've been going a little bit longer than I wanted to go on Bill Belichick. But so I'm going to bring up – I don't know if I can do it. Here we go. So I'm going to bring up the tier list here. And nobody actually has a tier list made, so I'm just kind of like improvising it here. So these are the head coaches who've been hired so far, right? We got Jeff Hafley, Kevin Stefanski, Joe Brady, Jesse Mentor, Todd Monken, Robert Saleh, Mike McCarthy. Nobody else, right? Those are the guys who've been hired.
I think so.
Yeah, I'm not missing anybody.
Hold on, who do you have? Let me see.
Jeff Hafley, Kevin Stefanski, Joe Brady, Jesse Mentor, Todd Monken, Robert Saleh, and Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, That's everyone because the only two teams without a coach is the Raiders and the Cardinals. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure I didn't forget anybody else. Why on earth Lou Anarumo is considered a head coaching candidate blows my mind. Like, did y'all see? Like, I tried to tell you about Lou Anarumo and the way that he runs a defense, and y'all wanted to be like, "Oh no, look how good they are in the first couple games of the season
The Colts
with
almost
all those
hired
veterans."
Denzel. The Colts almost hired Denzel.
I think Dennis Allen would have had similar results, frankly.
Probably. He probably did worse.
But anyway, we're not worried about these guys because this is. I only use this tier list because nobody has an actual tier list. So let's just go ahead and rank these hires then.
Yeah.
So I think I'm not happy to say this, but I think it's true that like the only slam dunk hire I think that we've really had in this hiring cycle so far has been Jesse Mentor.
Yeah.
Like, that was a phenomenal pick by the Ravens, and I hate it. I hate everything about it, but the Ravens made a great head coaching hire. And I thought moving on from Harbaugh was maybe like I get it, but
I thought it was time for him to go. I think it's been time for him to go.
I also get that. I'm not saying it wasn't time for him to go. I'm just saying like I don't know if firing Harbaugh fixes anything, but bringing in Jesse Mentor, I mean, like if that like hits the way that it could, Jesse Mentor might actually, make moving on from Harbaugh be something that makes sense in my mind.
Yeah, maybe.
So I'll give unless you want to throw any of these other guys in here.
Like in the top category.
Top category, yeah.
Who's the third guy next to Stefanski? What's his name?
Joe Brady.
Oh, him. Okay. Yeah, I think Minster's the only hire where I think it was a slam dunk.
Yeah. But beyond that, I'm saying he's like the best hire. Period.
Yeah.
So, all right. So then we got the rest of these guys. Let's to make things a little easier. Who's the worst of all these hires?
Jeff Hafley.
Wrong.
I'm not wrong. It's Jeff Hafley.
Why Jeff Hafley? Why? What's wrong with Jeff Hafley?
Because this dude couldn't win at Boston College. Why is he going to win in the NFL?
What? Because college and the NFL are completely different.
But if he could not win in the ACC or AAC or whatever they're in, and like his defense with the Green Bay Packers fell apart against Chicago, and he has no head coaching experience whatsoever, he's the worst.
I have different opinions in that. I really like Jeff Hafley. I think he's going to do. If you hear him talk, I think he fits with what the Dolphins are trying to build. I would actually mark him as the second best personally.
No, he's terrible.
Okay, well, let's flip a coin then, because we seem to be at completely different ends of the spectrum on this one.
I have a coin right here if you want.
Okay. You know what? Here I have a magical 20-sided dice. So even or odd? Pick even or odd.
I'll pick even.
Even. Okay. So even we'll put Jeff Hafley at the bottom for some reason. Odd we'll put him at number 2.
Okay.
19. I win.
Okay, whatever you say.
I really like Jeff Hafley to the Dolphins. I'm not saying it's going to work because I'm not 100% sure how I feel about the Dolphins as an organization, but I really like Jeff Hafley. I think that's a good fit at the very least. All right. So other than Jeff Hafley, who do you think is the worst hire?
I think Joe Brady.
I could see the argument for that. I don't really honestly understand. Yeah, I'll take that. Joe Brady's
Yeah,
the worst hire
especially
because,
for
like,
this
I don't
year.
understand. Like, my whole issue with hiring Joe Brady is like, what was the fucking point of moving on from Sean McDermott?
Yeah.
Like, what was the point of that?
This year.
Especially with the way the Bills are run right now. It's like that's not going to. It doesn't make any sense. What like it's not going to do anything.
And you know how I know it's going to be a bad head coach? When you have a bunch of offensive coordinator options and you choose Pete Carmichael as your number one guy.
Okay, I forgot about Pete Carmichael. I can see why you think that's a really bad one, and I also like looking at these hires. Like that's a pretty bad one. I think that Todd Monken is a really
I actually like Monken. I just don't think the Browns will like him.
Okay, so I feel like Todd Monken. I've never seen the mentality out of Todd Monken that makes any sense as a head coach in the NFL to me. He doesn't seem like the guy who runs the organization. He just doesn't have that kind of personality. And so I don't really understand why they went with him. But just the with all of the turmoil that the Browns head coaching search has had this offseason, that reflects really poorly on the guy they did hire when you think about it. So I'm really concerned about Todd Monken.
I mean, I don't know. I'm 50-50 on
But
Monken. I could see a world where he's good, but I could also see a world where he sucks.
I definitely think he's going to suck, but I don't think it may or may not be because Todd Monken sucks. It might just be because of the Browns, honestly.
That's what I'm saying. I don't even know if Prime Bill. I say that, but literally Bill Belichick, the great one of at least top 2 coach of all time in some people's eyes, couldn't win there. So I don't think Tom Monken. He's in for a rude awakening.
I just don't understand what the Browns are doing here. So, I mean, if you want to talk about this category here, what the fuck are you doing? I think it's the perfect place to put Todd Monken. Not because I think Todd Monken's the worst possible head coaching hire you could ever have, but, like, I don't understand how that fits with the Browns at all.
Yeah.
I don't understand. But then again, I don't understand what the Browns are ever doing, ever, with anything, ever, in my entire life.
True. That is true.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can let's make that a little bigger so you don't have to stare at my desktop all the time. Maybe we can get a Adobe Studio out of there too, so you don't have to see that. There we go. I think it's a little nicer on the eyes. Okay. So that leaves 3 coaches left. I want to get your opinion on Kevin Stefanski.
All right.
Because I know how you feel about the Falcons, but
all right, this is gonna be tough, but I'm gonna try to keep my bias out of it. And by the way, we have 4 coaches left. By the way, and second of all, Kevin Stefanski.
4 coaches.
Yeah, John Harbaugh, Mike McCarthy, Robert Saleh.
Oh, I forgot about John Harbaugh. Yeah, fuck. Hold on.
So
there we go.
Yeah. Who were we talking about? Kevin Stefanski, right? Yeah.
Kevin Stefanski.
I think Stefanski, when it comes to like I don't know how great he's going to be in Atlanta. I hope he's not great in Atlanta. I hope he's the worst coach of all time in Atlanta. But his time in Cleveland, I could say, what's his name? I keep forgetting this dude's name. With Cleveland, with Baker Mayfield, they draft Baker Mayfield, and then the Browns. Well, Stefanski didn't draft him, but he inherited Baker Mayfield, and he got good results out of Baker. And even with Deshaun Watson, like Watson wasn't playing great, but the Browns were winning. Now the last 2 years weren't great, but I do think Stefanski was a great hire for Atlanta.
Well, I will say, as far as in Stefanski's defense for how the last 2 years weren't great, like what are you supposed to do? Like the Browns put him in such a completely unwinnable position. Like I don't think Tom Landry himself. I don't think Vince Lombardi would have won very much with the last couple of years with the Browns. Like the Deshaun Watson situation was such a nightmare scenario for the Browns, and it's like anybody with a fucking brain could have told you that like that was a high chance of happening. Like not like was Deshaun Watson like, you know, really talented in Houston? Yeah. But like with everything surrounding that situation, you're telling me you don't think that's going to affect his mentality at all? You're telling me you don't think that like, you know, off-field stuff is going to like put a dark cloud over this whole thing at all and is going to influence how other, you know, people feel about potentially joining your organization or doing what I just do not understand, especially for how much they gave up for Deshaun Watson. Like, what were you thinking? Yeah. Probably the same thing they were thinking like when they drafted Johnny Manziel, which I also said was a terrible idea at the time, but
yeah, good.
I guess I don't know. But anyway, as far as the Falcons go, I think Kevin Stefanski is like was probably as far as experienced coaches go, probably the best one on the market. So I mean that alone would make me think that the Falcons, you know, I mean, it depends on what the fit's like and everything like that, but I think Stefanski could be a good mentor for Michael Penix. He'll have a much more stable situation in Atlanta, even though I know Atlanta is Atlanta, but they're not the Browns. So I personally, I would put Stefanski at like the third best hire here.
Yeah.
And we can even call it 2 because you don't like Jeff Hafley. But you know, the dice spoke, Mikey. I'm just saying.
The dice is a damn lie.
I'm gonna put Stefanski here, 2B. I don't know how it's going to work with Atlanta, but I think it's. I think I don't know how anybody would work with Atlanta. You know, maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. But
it won't.
You know, in terms of just like, you know, is this a good idea or not? I think it's about as good of an idea as they were going to have.
Maybe.
All right. So next for me, would be Robert Saleh. Just because, like, that puts him in the middle of the pack, by the way.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't know how I like the fit in Tennessee, though. That's the only thing.
Well, I kind of agree with that, but that's what I'm saying. Like, we're in the middle of the pack here. Like, I like Robert Saleh. I don't know if I love him in Tennessee. It's kind of like the same thing with the Jets. Like, I really liked Robert Saleh going somewhere. But I thought that, man, going to the Jets, that's going to be tough. But then I even thought that, like, at the time, I was like, well, Robert Saleh could turn the Jets around. And he didn't. But, you know, it's like, I still think that Robert Saleh was a pretty solid coach. You know, after the way that that whole situation with Liam Cohen, I do kind of wonder now, like, does Robert Saleh really have, like, the psychology to be a very good, like, leader? The way you need to be as a head coach. Like, it's one thing to be like a defensive coordinator and like focus on strategy. It's another thing to be like the guy who like runs the entire organization. And you have to like, you know, worry not just about, you know, you have to worry not just about like calling plays on the field, but you also have to worry about like, you know, personability and everything like that. And I never really was concerned about that with Robert Saleh until this year, but now I am a little concerned. So I don't know, but it's not enough for me to really make a big deal about it. So I think putting him as like a middle of the pack hires makes sense to me.
Yeah, I just think like I understand he got a bad rap in New York, but it's like, I mean, even with the Jets, he wasn't. Like, in order to be a head coach, you got to be a leader. And I don't think Robert Saleh is really a good leader of men. Like, I think he's a great defensive coordinator, but I don't know if he's, like, a leader of men for real. I mean, Aaron
you know
Rodgers
what?
didn't like him. The Jets didn't like him.
You know, I take it back. And you can disagree with me if you want. But instead of Robert Saleh being next, I'm going to put John Harbaugh next. Because I actually kind of like the fit with Harbaugh in New York.
Yeah, I like okay, so I just thought John Harbaugh's time in Baltimore was done. I didn't think Harbaugh's time as a head coach was done, though. I think with the Ravens, he reached his ceiling. Like, you know, you could contend for a playoff spot, maybe division round, maybe championship, but you're never getting a Super Bowl with Harbaugh. So that's the only problem I had with Baltimore. I think it was time for like fresh blood in there.
Yeah.
But I think with him going to New York, I think depending on how certain stuff go, I think they have like a window now if they can capitalize on it where they could contend.
Yeah. I'm thinking about putting him actually ahead of Stefanski because, like, the more I think about it, the more I actually think Harbaugh is a really good fit with Giants.
Oh, absolutely. He's a better fit than anybody with Atlanta.
That's part of my concern too. Yeah. I don't really see the vision with Atlanta too much. Like, more than the Cardinals, but more than the Raiders. But yeah.
Honestly, I would rather be the head coach of a high school team than be the head coach of Atlanta. Why? Because screw you.
Okay, and so then I guess that would naturally put Mike McCarthy here at number 5.
Yeah.
We didn't really talk about him a whole lot, and he's just kind of here by default now. But that's kind of how I feel about him being the Steelers head coach anyway. I feel like he's like kind of there by default. I feel like it's just like it's a hire that really doesn't make the most sense, but it's also like you could have done
think
worse.
about it, that's definitely a Steelers hire.
It is, but like it's not the best, but it could be worse. But it also that's maybe that in and of itself is a bad thing because isn't like being okay but not great kind of what the Steelers are trying to get away from, or at least what Steelers fans want to get away from.
Yeah, maybe I don't know.
Yeah. All right, so that's where we've got our rankings here. Now, as far as Arizona and the Raiders go, so are you Clint Kubiak? Who did you say you thought he was going to go to?
Raiders.
Yeah, that does make sense. Okay. Let's just assume that Clint Kubiak's going to the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
See if I can find him here. Here we go. Clint Kubiak going to the Raiders. How do you think that would be for them?
For the Raiders, I think that would be an absolute slam dunk.
I don't think it would be a slam dunk at all. I don't think it would be a bad hire by any means, but I wouldn't. I'd put it right in there with like Stefanski and Saleh, to be honest with you.
I think Clint's everything that you want out of a head coach.
Okay, so let's compromise and put him in like the A tier then with like Harbaugh and Hafley.
Okay.
Because fuck you, Hafley's an A hire.
Hafley finna get fired next year. I'm calling it right now. He's finna be one and done.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
He's just a bridge guy. He's gonna help Miami get a high draft pick. They're gonna hire somebody that knows ball. They're gonna draft a new quarterback next year, and we'll see how that goes.
I think if any of these guys have a chance of being hired as the head coach of a team and turning them from being a not very good team to being like a consistently competitive team, I think Jeff Hafley is like the guy,
No, not even a little bit.
I think because like Jesse Mentor's being hired to a team that's used to contending on a pretty consistent basis.
John Harbaugh if there's a team that can contend immediately, it's John Harbaugh with the Giants.
I didn't say immediately. I said long term. I do agree that like short term, John Harbaugh to the Giants is probably the best hire for a team that's like consistently bad. But I think Jeff Hafley is gonna I don't think he's gonna be fired after a year. I think he's gonna do well enough to like give himself, some time to build in Miami, and I think that it's gonna work out there.
He's going to be just like Aaron Glenn.
What? Why?
He's going to be just like Aaron Glenn. He's going to be a guy where they just hire because they feel like it, and he's going to be terrible in his first year. All the fans going to hate him. I already know some Dolphin fans that hate this dude, and they're going to hate him, but they're going to, like, if they do bring him back the year after, he's going to get fired because Aaron Glenn's not making it out this next season, and Jeff Hafley's not making it out this next season either, and if he does, he's not making it past 2 years.
I'll be honest, I was a little surprised Aaron Glenn didn't get fired because, like, you're a defensive. Like, I still like Aaron Glenn's potential as a head coaching candidate in some situations. I don't know if I'd like immediately hire him to be a head coach again, but I like his long-term potential as a coach. But I will say, if you're a defensive guy and your team doesn't record an interception for 17 whole games, I don't know how the fuck you didn't get fired.
Kyle, congratulations. You and I both had the same amount of interceptions as the Jets team this year.
I know, and I'm getting paid a hell of a lot less than any of those guys.
Exactly. I don't even get paid, and yet we both combined had the same amount of interceptions as the Jets this season, and we can't play football worth a damn.
It's very true. All right. Well, all right. So there's our tier list. As far as guys we think, who was the guy that we were saying was going to go to the Cardinals? We didn't really come up with a guy.
I said the dude from Carolina.
Yeah, and yeah, you said it Ejiro Evero, and I wouldn't be shocked to see Ejiro Evero get it.
And if he does get hired, I'll put him in the same category with Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. As far as Mike McCarthy goes, I don't, other than just like trying to run it back, which the Steelers have been trying to do for literally a decade. And it's like, how have you not learned at this point? But other than trying to run it back with a guy who's got name power, I don't really get the vision. Oh, and Mike McCarthy. But it feels like Mike McCarthy's going to be the Kenny Pickett of coaches. That's what it feels like to me. Because, like, I mean, the part of the reason they brought him in is because he's from Pittsburgh.
I think Mike McCarthy could work depending on what happens this offseason.
I don't. Well, I do. I do think Mike McCarthy could kind of work. Because the Steelers are going to be very unlikely to fire him for a while, and I feel like they're going to give him the time he needs to build something. I don't know what they're going to quite build, but I think Mike McCarthy could eventually put something together in Pittsburgh. I just don't know if it'll be anything to really write home about.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Well, so there's a tier list. We talked about everybody. We didn't talk a whole lot about Mike McCarthy, but, you know, we talked a lot about Mike McCarthy on the last episode, I feel. So the Super Bowl is next week.
It is.
Got the Seattle Seahawks and the quote-unquote evil empire, which I get, but it's like it's the completely – like it's not a single person from the old Patriots dynasty, except for, I guess, technically Mike Vrabel, but Mike Vrabel was such an early member of that old dynasty, and that was – and that now he's the coach, and he's got a completely different, like, role in it. It's not.
I mean, well, they got the same owner. I mean, Robert Kraft.
Well, they do have Robert Kraft still. So I'll give you that, I guess. But it's like all of the guys who, like, I mean, my boss said this at work today. He's like, you know, all the guys I didn't like from the Patriots are gone. You know, I personally did not have too much problem with the Patriots, but I think this is the way a lot of people feel. Like, you know, this version of the Patriots is not the version of the Patriots that everybody hated. And I feel like a lot of these, like, you know, like sports people are trying to drum up that drama for clicks and stuff like that. Like I noticed it with like Urinating Trees video about like the Haters Guide to the Super Bowl. And it really kind of felt like he's really trying to drive home that like the evil empire is back. And Tom Grassi's been doing it with like his, and now it's funny, but the whole Darth Patriot thing. It really feels like it's a forced narrative to me. And I'm not terribly angry at anybody for doing it. I'm just saying, to me, it kind of feels like a lazy narrative.
Maybe.
Because, like, it's not the same Patriots team. Now, it is kind of crazy that the Patriots, you know, are back to relevance this quickly. But I will say, I look at how much Drake May has, you know, been kind of careless with the football this year. Look at a lot of problems that the Patriots have had. I'm not saying that they won't be back, on a regular basis, but like I just this Patriots team feels to me like it's a Patriots team that's in the Super Bowl because it wasn't really a team in the AFC this year that was going to stop them. You know, like
Yeah.
the Patriots are the best team out of an AFC that where the Chiefs finally fell off, and there wasn't really anybody available to step in. Best we had was the Bills, and we all know how suspect the Bills are.
You know how in fantasy football,
Should have been the Bengals.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, around championship week, you know how fantasy football does these second place games?
Yeah, I guess.
That's what the AFC championship was. Winner gets second place.
Yeah, pretty much.
Ain't nobody beating Seattle.
I can't imagine. Like, I mean, a lot of people are like, it feels like the Patriots feels like what? Like, that's your only argument for the Patriots is like, oh, it's the empire. Like, okay, but like if you actually like look at the Patriots in a vacuum, like they've got their defense is pretty solid, but their defense is also a bit porous at times. And Drake May is a very good player, but he's also kind of careless and reckless with the football at times. And I feel like going up against this team and going up against Denver is going to be a completely different story. Like the Seahawks are, I feel like, a true, and they're kind of out of nowhere this year, but either way, they feel like a true team of destiny. Like, it's like it kind of reminds me of the Bengals run in 2021, except this time there's no Aaron Donald on the other side.
Yeah, I mean the Patriots look, and I actually before the season I had the Seahawks in the NFC Championship game. I thought they were going to be that good. I had them losing to the Commanders. We weren't going to talk about that second part. I mean, I think the Patriots. This is just a terrible matchup. I mean, I just don't. There's not one thing that the Patriots have that I think they can exploit Seattle. Yeah, their defense is cool. So is Seattle's. And Seattle's offense. If you're going to beat Seattle, you got to outscore them. You ain't outscoring the Seattle Seahawks. Not with how your offense has been looking the entire season, and even in the playoffs. Like, yes, you're in the Super Bowl, meaning you won the most games out of any team in the playoffs. Congratulations. But you didn't play a team like Seattle. You played the Chargers. Congratulations. You played the Texans, where if CJ Stroud does not throw 4 interceptions, you lose that game. And then you played the Denver Broncos, who if Bo Nix starts, maybe you lose that game. So it's like, I mean, I don't take the Patriots seriously. And maybe they'll shut me up and we can win the Super Bowl. They're not going to, though.
Well, I think the Patriots absolutely could win the Super Bowl if Seattle shows up and sucks.
Which won't happen.
No, it's possible. I mean, they could show up and they could have a game plan that just doesn't work or something like that. I mean, any given Sunday, there's no reason on earth the Bengals should have lost to the fucking Jets this year, but it happened.
Well, that's because you're shitty. But they're not gonna beat. The Patriots are not gonna beat Rashid the Need for Speed Shaheed.
Okay, so Rashid Shaheed's a kick returner and a wide receiver, but he's primarily a kick returner. I think you could probably if the kick return game isn't really part of the game plan. It's just like catch the ball and see what happens.
Catch the ball and score a touchdown.
Yeah, but that's not a game plan. Game plan is not get ball, score touchdown. That's not how game plans work.
Yes, it is. So this is what you do. You catch the ball, you run real fast, you score a touchdown. Great game plan.
If you're Chris Collinsworth, maybe, but I don't know if you know this about Chris Collinsworth, but he's not a coach. He's a dumb announcer.
Chris Collinsworth.
What?
I never said anything about Chris Collinsworth.
I know you just employed his strategy into a game plan, allegedly.
Okay.
Oh, if you go faster than the other guy, you're gonna get a touchdown.
Exactly. It's very easy to game plan.
Okay. Well, I think that's about it. You got anything else?
Pete Carmichael, really?
I really don't think most people are paying too much attention to Pete Carmichael.
Damn it, I am.
I know you are. I'm sure plenty of Saints fans are probably also saying the same thing, but I think most people are more, deciding whether Joe Brady's a good hire or not.
If the Bills miss the playoffs next season, will I be surprised? Hell no. Pete Carmichael, that's the best you could come up with.
I feel like Joe Brady, is that the best you could come up with? Like, I'm not saying Joe Brady's necessarily a bad coach, but I don't know, like, I haven't really seen him do a whole lot in the NFL that I've been all that impressed by. And like, it feels like he's just like living off of the success of that 2019 LSU team. But he hasn't been having those, like without those players, he hasn't had the same success. So I don't know. And I could be wrong. He could be a good coach, but I'm not sure. And it really just kind of feels like Joe Brady is gonna just be Sean McDermott too. And like, I like Sean McDermott as a coach, but it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why would you fire Sean McDermott if you're just gonna hire Joe Brady? Like, what was the point of that? Are you mad at Sean McDermott? Is that what it is? Like,
a big point in Buffalo's decision that they said is because they wanted change.
So they got Joe Brady?
So if you wanted change, why did you just hire your offensive coordinator if you want to change that badly?
Right, exactly. Like, nothing's really going to change.
That's literally the same damn thing. You're just changing his nameplate.
Right.
But if that's the case, you should have just kept McDermott.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. Maybe Joe Brady knocks it out of the park and we all look stupid, but I don't get it. I don't get it. But anyway, that's going to be it for us tonight. I got work in the morning, so I can't be up too terribly late. You got anything else you want to say, Mikey, before the Super Bowl?
Go Seahawks.
Yeah. I'll be okay with whoever wins. I'd be fine with the Patriots. I'd be fine with the Seahawks. I think I'm rooting for the Seahawks, but I'd be fine with the Patriots.
And we are still streaming Super Bowl, right?
Should be, yeah.
Okay, bet.
Yeah. Okay. And then last order of business. I think it'll either be the week after the Super Bowl or the week after like 2 weeks after the Super Bowl that we'll do our mock draft.
Okay.
Like as in now, to be clear, when I say mock draft, like, I've done a first round mock draft that I put out every single year since I was in high school. And we can probably do something like that for the podcast this year, but that's completely different. That's going to be us putting together like what we're going to be doing is we're going to be like Mikey's going to take the Saints draft picks. I'm going to take the Bengals draft picks. And then we're going to use the PFF mock simulator. And when it's our team's turn, we're going to like make our decision, or we're going to trade and see if the trade simulator will let us do that trade. And then we'll come out of it and we'll, be like, this is what we did. So that's what we will be doing here in like a couple of weeks, just depending on when it feels right. So turns out Dan Pitcher is not getting a head coaching job. I'm not entirely sure why anybody thought he was. I know. There's a lot of talk about him potentially getting a head coaching job, and I'm like, there's like 8 jobs available, and you think Dan Pitcher is going to get one? Like, really? Like, nobody even knew who Dan Pitcher was before this year.
I still don't know who he is.
He's our offensive coordinator.
Oh, I know that, but I've never. I thought Joe Burrow was your offensive coordinator, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he might as well be. But then again, Joe Burrow was also hurt for a lot of this year. So
exactly, when he was hurt, he was calling them plays.
Yeah, you can make the argument that Dan Pitcher looked pretty good as an offensive coordinator this year because the offense looked good no matter who was at quarterback, except for Jake Browning. But one thing that I'll remind everybody is that like the play caller is Zach Taylor.
That is
like that was my whole argument with Brian Callahan. It's like, okay, Bengals offense good. I get that part. But if you think if you're gonna if you're going to give a coach success for the Bengals offense, you got to give it to Zach Taylor, not the offensive coordinator, because the offensive coordinator, all he does is like, motivate the players and stuff. He coaches them up, but the guy coming up with the strategies and stuff, that's Zach Taylor. And that's part of why, I do push back against people saying Zach Taylor is such a bad head coach. I have my issues, and I feel that the Bengals need to move on for the specific issues I have. But as far as whether the guy's a good coach or not, like just look at the results of the stuff he's good at.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's the reason why he's got a job and why he was being considered before the Bengals gave him a job, But anyway, that's all I've got. I'm done ranting about Zach Taylor now. I guess I'll leave y'all as always with a who dey.
Who dat?
All right. We had basically zero interaction in the chat today.
Yeah.
Well, it's a dead week. I don't know why we get that much interaction.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I gotta actually hit end there. All right. Well, I will. I guess the next time we'll stream together is the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah. Well, wait. Yeah, I think so. That's next week, right? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I may or may not do an episode, like a podcast before the Super Bowl, but probably not.